Hey, welcome to this special episode of the Luke McLean podcast. Now, today or this week, it's Men's Health Week. So today we've got Cahill Transport General Manager Shane Lovell, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about men's health in regards to logistics, in regards to into truck drivers and what that means. So many men. Um, drive trucks, and we know that that's such a challenging industry in relation to wellness, in terms of the challenges they face within sleep, movement, food choices. But it's such an important industry for us. It's what keeps our country moving, is our trucks and our truck drivers, and we need them to be in great shape for themselves, for their families, but also for the other people that are on the roads. And what can we do to help, you know, elevate the wellness, of the logistics industry? That's what we're talking about today. So this is a really interesting episode. We talked to Shane about, what he's seeing in the transport industry in terms of wellness, his personal practices, and then some practical ways that we can, you know, elevate and get some more consistency and commitment into our health as men. So I hope you like this episode. It's a really unique one. It's a great conversation, and I think it covers all the bases of wellness and leadership, and basically life in regards to men's health. Well, we've got Shane Lovell here from Cahill Transport, and we're going to talk men's health. It's Men's Health Week. It felt like a real fitting conversation to have. Shane's the general manager of Cahill Transport. They employ a lot of men on the roads. Driving trucks. Who are hugely important. For our economy, but their health is central to our safety as well, for them, for their wellness and their families. But also when they're on the roads, we need them in good physical, mental and emotional shape, because, they're driving something really big, sometimes through some treacherous roads and on highways. And, for them to be in good shape is really important. So we're going to, pick apart men's health, holistically, and then we're going to sort of nosedive a little bit into what it means for a truck driver, what it means for a trucking company in terms of health and health for their employees, and maybe come up with a couple of practical ways to help that conversation, in the transport industry. So, Shane, mate, welcome. Good to have you on.
Luke, thanks for partnering on this project with us. I think through the discussions that people will understand that we've known each other for a little while, but certainly from a business perspective, Cahill Transport, it's, while we seek to be an employer of choice and diverse the demographic of our workforce, both from a business perspective but also an industry perspective, is predominantly made up of men. So this week is really important for us to understand the nature of the work that we do, understand the impact that it has on men's health, and try and promote that message through our drivers, through our warehouse staff, but right across our business, the importance of people's mental health and physical health, to not only for work but for a really active life and things that go around it. So excited to partner with you, mate, and happy to share, and hopefully we can send a message back through the troops, just on how important this really is for us.
Well, we have known each other for years, like 20 plus years. We grew up as young fellas, as mates. And what I think is interesting, mate, in terms of, we're having this conversation now, in our early 40s, that back in our 20s, this wasn't a conversation. Men's Health Week wasn't a thing. We weren't really talking about, physical health, let alone mental health of men. And it was a real, decade or so of suck it up, keep it to yourself, just get on with it. And it's just really, interesting and positive how things have changed. And we're sitting here now, over Zoom, having a chat about men's mental health that you couldn't have imagined back in when we started catching up.
Absolutely, mate. I think we met playing football, and that environment there was built around toughness, really, and mental resilience, whether you had it or not. It wasn't an environment where people openly spoke about emotions and challenges. It was really the bravado of showing up, to training or on match day, and how much manliness could you demonstrate over a period, and you look at the social engagements around that, around any sport really. And I think over time you see now, and as you get older, you have kids, and what you see in those types of sporting clubs is really, the engagement of family, the engagement of activities that promote, that broader element of family and life, and being able to talk about your feelings, and really breaking down the barriers of those. And from a workplace perspective as well, I know that throughout the career, having worked in a lot of sectors, and a lot of sectors that are, primarily driven, or the makeup of those work groups is men, watching the workspace evolve to make sure that people's well-being, both physical and mental, has become such a broader consideration for employers. And I know in this role now, really, successful managers and successful businesses understand what role they need to play for their employees, around their health and around the environments they create, that really enables people to talk about issues, to talk about their problems, to promote their health, to check in, all those sorts of things that, like you said, 20 years ago when we're running around, and probably when you're 20, you're invincible. You don't think about, the long-term health implications of what you do and how you live. But ultimately, as you get older, you understand that. And in business, you understand that if you really put your people first, you have to encompass all those things that make sure that they're in a great state, both professionally and personally.
And mate, like you've worked like there's layers of workplaces, and there's what layers of workplaces with men. You've got offices and the fancy offices, which we've all seen, and then there's the places you've worked in, some really, what you'd say is more traditional men's workplaces, such as the wharves and a trucking company. What's the state of men's health in those environments compared to what you might see, if it was at a bigger business or an accountant or a sporting club or something like that? Like, where are we in terms of men's health in trucking and those areas?
I think in logistics in general, which probably encompasses everything, from port activity all the way through to sort of postal work and then delivery, it's catching up. It's been left alone in a lot of sectors. From a health and safety perspective, it's catching up. The sector's catching up. But really now they're starting to understand the impacts of whether it's stevedoring, or it's truck driving, or it's warehouse work. Not only the physical impacts that it has on people, but the other challenges that go away with not seeing your family consistently, working long hours. I have the utmost respect for our guys, and I understand, especially from our line haul drivers, is they may be engaged for up to 5 days, 7 days in work activity, and that's away from home. So I think we're starting to understand. I think industry bodies are starting to put some resources into things like healthy heads in trucks. We see that. I mean, the legislation dictates a lot of that, but ultimately it is a catch-up space. In that world where it hasn't played on it really. It's been a physical game, and we're just starting to understand those impacts, and smart businesses are moving the dial pretty quickly to make sure that they play well in that space.
And what over the past couple of years, and in the next couple of years, what are some of the areas that from a Cahill Transport perspective, that you're sort of focusing on? Like, do you see any big wins or most impactful spots to focus on in terms of health and men's health in particular, or is it just a holistic look?
Oh no, I think we see. I wouldn't say opportunity is the right word, but we see that if we're going to be again an employer of choice, that this is a sector, and especially heavy vehicle operation in Australia, it's a sector that doesn't have a well of employees coming through. So it's a rapidly aging cluster of experienced workers. The physical demands are quite high, the mental demands are quite high. So if we don't create an environment for people, and that can really talk about a lot of components. Creating an environment means that we have a workplace that's inclusive. that we have a workplace where collaboration and ideas are shared, that we have a workplace that we listen to our staff, and those physical environments as well, which we're putting a lot of time and energy into over the next 2 years to make sure that when they do, engage with our teams physically, we've got great sites that promote great sleeping habits on site. Downtime, things like drivers' rooms and wellness rooms and things on site that break up the monotony of driving. So they're really important. We understand, how important those pieces are. So really, focusing on the environment, focusing on, our people, the ability to communicate, work through is really important for us, and it is a focus for our strategic plans for the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's a big one, and what you've sort of said there, I think the overlap for men, for any office worker in general, is there. So much of what we're doing isn't natural to us. So the work we've got to do to invest in ourselves to stay healthy is more so because we've moved further away from what we should be doing in many respects, like to sit for 8 hours a day in front of a screen, to not move very often, to isolate ourselves, to be on screens. These aren't natural behaviors of a human, and they take their toll, but that's how we are. So that investment to try to, move, be around people, get out in nature, to eat reasonably well, are more important than ever because we're further away than we've ever been. So I think that's the bit, for when we talk about this men's health, is it's doing a lot of the little basic things better. And, that's what I sort of hear a bit from your conversation there. It's not just one thing. It's the small improvements in lots of areas of sleep, time with family, having that downtime away from the truck and allowing them to be in the best shape when they get to work, but also in the best shape when they get to their families. Is that sort of where you're at with it?
Yeah, like I said, there's things that you can control, as an employer, and it is their time and space. Any employee's time and space with you is things that you can control, but also having a good business rhythm. Because if you have a good business rhythm, people shouldn't have to take as many stresses home with them, and if we can have I always look at it, our relationships with our customers, and people think that's a bit of a commercial sell, but ultimately our team spend probably more time on customer sites than our sites. And it is a fast-paced environment. Everything's on time slots, and you've got to be here, you've got to be there, you've missed this window, now we have to rebook. And all those little things create stresses for everyone. Everyone wants to operate at a high level. So really, the better operating rhythm you have, the more efficient you run, the more seamless it is for people, the less things they should take home with them from their day. And I think that's really important, because part of, and I certainly know in my role, there's a lot to process. There's always a lot going on, and it does spill into your personal life, and it can consume your mindset when things are busy and you've got a lot on. So if we can create not only environments where people like coming to work, or enjoy it as much as they can, and we have those social connections for people, the space is inviting, but also an operating rhythm where people at the end of the day feel they've accomplished something, that they're part of our organisation, they're part of our goals, they're part of our journey, and they get that reward. And I always say to people, perfection's something that comes with long-standing practice. And in our business, the rules, the fence posts, technology, everything moves so quickly. You always feel like you're chasing that sort of pot of gold that you never quite get. But if you work back to a few principles that, if we're better than yesterday and we learn from our mistakes, then we're always on the right journey. So I think, I talk about health and wellness. They're the things. What can we control, and what do we, by lack of structure or good communication or customer relationships, do we force our people to take home with them? That then impacts on that life at home. It might take them an extra half an hour to process or read through emails or catch up on things before they start to engage with that home life, in whatever element that looks for people. It might be family, might be pets, It might be routine and things that gives them that break. So I think they're the things that we focus on. It's a long pace to get there and a lot of work to get there. But as an employer, we're really conscious of that. And like I said, we just try and be a bit better each day at it.
So when you're in the logistics space, mate, I'm interested in terms of, you've been doing this a long time, where are you at with your journey? And what are some of the practices that you've used and using and then tried to sort of, you've got to commute up the highway regularly. You've got, a senior management job. You've got a young family or a family that's growing up. You're the everyday stresses of life. I'd love for you to share some of what you've done or doing in this health space.
I'd love to say I get it right all the time, but that would be a lie, Lukey, to be honest. But I think a couple of things that you practice. I think something I'm not good at is I'm health aware, but I'm very reactive in my response to it. So, like a lot of people, I'll in ebbs and flows, I'll focus on things and improve my physical condition, but it comes in waves. So I think that's something for me. I do work on it, and I can eat well and exercise, but probably don't do that consistently enough that it's a habit. And I don't let things spiral to the point where they're unrecoverable. But balance is found with a pretty volatile seesaw at times, working up and down. But I think to answer your question, I always try and put things in context. And if you put things in context, it's hard to do. It's a skill you've got to work in over time. But our environment and our world that we work in and we live in, there's things that we can control and there's things that we can't control. But ultimately, I always say to myself, if I wasn't doing this job or I didn't have these stresses, there'd be someone else's stresses. They'd get done by someone else. They'd be worked through by someone else. So I just have to give the best that I can in the scenarios I have to work through. I think when I'm home, some of that's routine. And that routine means that, there is work from home and you've got to support the business as the business needs support. But I think you surround yourself with good people, and the more that you do that, the less stress that you have, because you can share and use that experience. But when I'm at home, there is routine. There are times where phones are away. I recently have got in the habit of having a sauna nearly every day at home. Which is certainly, I can see you laughing there, a first world problem to have, but. I use that time because there is no technology, there's no distractions, and everyone knows the health benefit of it, but there's an enormous mental benefit of committing to that and sitting through that and staying in there when, every part of your body and mind's telling you not to. So that there are things that in routine, I think around family and kids, I try and be present when I need to be present. And you've got to listen. And having teenage boys, it's a big change from when they were young because their interest in their father's minimal at times. So you've got to respect that. But when they're ready to communicate, when they're ready to listen, when they're ready to engage, you've got to be ready. So and the same with their activities. There's things that they're passionate about, and as they grow into men, they have their own personality. And you've got to be engaged and listen and spend time on that. So it is. It's a balancing act. I think the commute to work is something I've learned to use well. I think the business has adapted and knows that's time they'll get hold of me on the phone, which is a great filler. But that is time to process. That's an hour for me to process my day, close my day. So when I get home, I am home, and I'm not still thinking about things or working through. So I think the other thing is planning. From an operational role, I always make sure that life's activities are in my calendar, and I don't interrupt them when they're important. But also things that I need to do, I schedule time to do so I don't worry about them. If I can't get to it today, we always try and get things done, but I make a home for that somewhere so I know that I don't have to sit and think about it for a week, whether I'm going to get it done or not. So, look, there are a few other things. I always think there's massive room for improvement. On the other side of the scale, there's days where you're consumed by what you need to do and what needs to be done and the support that people need. But like I said, a few deep breaths. It's okay to ask for help from those around you and seek that out. And I think at home it's important, if your head's not in the game and you're not in a mindset to listen, you should communicate that before it leads to any hostilities or anything. So if I am busy or something needs to be done, it's just that clear communication, really.
It's funny, mate. Like you sort of, the question was around your health and some of the things you do, which was really interesting. And for people listening, a lot of what you said, and this is the bit, it's not separate. A lot of what you said is just good practice. And what I mean by that is, consistency's king. If you can get consistent, you're going to get good results. Be present when it counts. Use your time well. Be planned. And what I mean by that is that's good business. That's good wellness. That's good life skills. That's good relationship stuff. It's not. Some people, I think, get in this thing where they think to be fit and healthy, I have to do something different to be a good leader or to be a good husband or to be a good wife. The foundations are really similar. It's just a matter, again, of putting those foundations into practice from a wellness or a health or a fitness perspective, as you would in a business context. And I still remember sitting having a coffee with, CEO of Cotton On. I won't mention his name. Guy's really smart, switched on guy. And he's just gone on this 6 weeks to lose 6 kilos keto thing. And he's like telling me about it. And he's like, how do you think I'll go? And I said, mate, you're going to fail. I said, you'll have the weight put back on within 10 weeks, I guarantee it. And he goes, well, why do you say that? I said, mate, if I went and bought $20,000 worth of T-shirts and had no plan for them and had no idea of what I was going to do after that 20,000 T-shirts, selling them would be great, but then I'd go broke because I haven't got any structure or any planning after that. I said, it's no different to your diet, or it's no different to your fitness campaign, that when you go on, a big kick and you go vertically up on your wellness, but you've got no consistency to follow that up with, you're gonna resort back to your old systems, your old habits eventually. And I think that's the key thing for people to understand is it starts small, build the foundation, almost rebuild the foundation to what you can maintain, go up a little bit further, reset the foundation again until you normalize what that means to you, as opposed to going for the big thing. And that's because we're sort of wired these days for that instant gratification. We want the big hit, we want the big weight loss, we want the big fitness thing. But as long as you wake up tomorrow, you still got to invest in your wellness. Right? Or you've got to not invest in your wellness, but there's still work to do. It doesn't matter if you're 9 or 90. That's still a decision of habits, environments, people that you've got to decide, am I moving towards health or away from health? And so it doesn't ever stop. So we've got to sort of treat it as it's like a business model forever, not just for the next couple of weeks. So I think it was gold, mate. I think what you said is gold in all aspects of life, not just wellness.
And look, I think about that for my team, and I think about the challenges of that. I mean, you work in a remote environment and you might not understand, but you look at the major trucking networks, there's not exactly a smorgasbord of healthy eating around the network in the hours that they work. The traditional truck stops and where they are. And I think, that planning and preparation and mindset, how important it is for them, because, there isn't the options. And, I think I'm really lucky to have a role where you get to go home every night and you get to plan and you get to reset. So I think about our teams and some of those comments I make, the challenges that they would have operationally to balance that out if they're doing shift work, what's available from a diet perspective. They're all things that we're really aware and want to start to really focus on as a business, to make sure that we look after our people, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that they deliver for us. They deliver for our customer. They're the face of our business, and without them, there is no us, really. So it's important for us to understand those challenges.
What do you see as the big ones, mate? Like in terms of from a transport logistics perspective, like you mentioned a couple before, and it'd be interesting to unpack it, nutrition, exercise, sleep, um, family as a wellness piece. Like, are there any really big, red lights that you see still within that space?
Oh, look, I think physical health in logistics, wherever you work, is always it's not a concern, but it has to be a focus point. The physical demands of the roles are quite high. I mean, they're not being engineered out really. And then on the other side of that, I think there's a dangerous combination. I mean, some of the trucks, and we try and have the most modern fleet. Some of the trucks that we see now from an ergonomic perspective and drivability are fantastic for people, but they still spend, most of their day sitting. And then that's in combination of then climbing out of something pretty aggressively and wrestling with loads and straps. So I think the physical element worries me a lot for our guys, that that sitting and resting and being comfortable to really fast-paced unloading environments. But I think the most thing is working in isolation. That piece where some people are more designed for it than others, but ultimately we're all designed for human connection and to be depending on where they go and what they do. They're on the road, they're on their own. Most of our line haul operations are interstate, are overnight. And their connections they have are probably other drivers at major touch points. But there's such small windows of time that they have, or where they're doing changeovers and bits and pieces. So, look, I worry about people working in isolation around that. Diet and health is really really important, and all those things. If they're not right, if your diet's not right, and if you're not processing the work that you do, and you get that human connection, then that leads to other challenges in life. It's really important, and the business right now, and a big part of my role is really investing in solutions to stay connected to our people. And this conversation's part of that. We're really exploring ways to get inside the trucks and get access to people that makes them feel connected, but also avenues that we can listen to them, and understand people's challenges. And I don't think right now, and especially in the last decade or so, that there's never been as many challenges on people, and especially those in logistics. Cost of living is going up. There's all these external pressures that are coming on people. All those sorts of things that mean that it's really important that their disconnected time from work is around family and not stresses. There's enough to stress around. So we don't want to be, as an employer, we don't want to contribute to that. We want to make sure that they get that healthy balance. And if there are avenues to support with other issues, then we're certainly in and around that. We've invested pretty heavily in a new EAP service for people that extends well beyond the challenges of work. That staff can use that as they need, but also training our managers to be good people managers and good listeners is really important as well.
It's such a, it can be such a positive, or it can be such a negative spiral of, and what I mean by that is the energy, the circle of energy of, you say you're in a truck, you got a big run, and then you don't eat well to get through, whatever that is. You come home, you're fatigued, you sort of check out. So for the time you're home, you don't feel like cashing out with anyone. You don't feel like doing much because you're sort of just recovering. Then you get back into the truck again, and then that rinse and repeats for a few times. And you actually, the time you've had off, haven't had the energy to go and connect and catch up or invest in yourself. And but you're back in the truck again doing the same stuff. And until you get the energy to shift it and to eat a bit better, move a bit more, to have more energy to go and make the effort to connect, then you've got the momentum to continue to invest in yourself, knowing that the investment's going to pay dividends now and down the track. But that first initial move is often challenging, and that's where people get stuck. Is that what sort of you see a little bit too?
I think so. I mean, people are creatures of habit,
Mm,
comfort, and people normally respond when it's too late.
yeah.
So I think when I look at the sector, I think um, you know habits, the workflow. It's quite interesting because how someone works, especially in heavy vehicle, the way that someone works, the hours they work, where they go, is all dictated for them, and it doesn't really change. I mean, it's quite a unique set of circumstances that fatigue management in the industry is set by a rule book,
Mm,
not the human condition. So no matter what state I'm in, as long as I'm fit to work, no matter what state I'm in, there's no considerations to how well I'll do that or what mood I'm in or how much sleep I had.
yeah.
As long as the vehicle doesn't move or I'm not driving with against the rule set, but really fatigue's about people, and I think there is so much more awareness around this now that people are starting to understand that unless it's quality break time, rest time, downtime, people time, then you are going to be fatigued in life. And when you press for time as well, you make poor choices.
Yeah.
And I more personal when I think about my own eating habits and when it's going to a place I'm not comfortable with. It's not necessarily that I don't want to eat well or it's more that I haven't put that planning and time into it. And then when you press for time to find the right things, sit and eat the right things, you make poor choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not excuses because you can make them easy. Everyone's responsible for their own well-being, but you've got to create that environment where you're going to succeed, really.
Well, mate, and you know, think about this, like, knowing you pretty well, like, you got emotions,
Mm.
that you eat emotionally sometimes to cope with stress,
Yep.
and then you've got, what you be habit hooks of just repeating habits, environments, people that create behavior. So, and when I think about that, I think about, the guy that's working that goes into that roadhouse that he goes into each week, and Jan, who's behind the counter, yells out your usual order of the hamburger with a lot and the large chips, and you're trying to make a conscious change to your diet, but she yells that out. That's a hard sell to stop that and go, actually, I'm going to go for the salad or the salad roll and the water,
Mm.
because the 50 other visits and that lady shouting out that order, that's embedded. That's a hard move to get away from, to not just be on autopilot with what you eat, because also you don't want to consume more energy thinking about what I should eat as opposed to just doing what I've always done, and
Mm.
that's reserving energy that I don't have to waste on other things.
No, it
So
is. It's routine and it's easy. And it's easy to walk into a venue and not order something because people know what you want.
yeah.
And like you said, how do you break those cycles and what do you do differently? And I know for me, sometimes it's just going somewhere else. Like, like if you've got that option, going somewhere else where your favourite thing on the menu is probably not there,
Yeah.
or they'll serve it up before you order it. And like I said, one of the challenges of not driving but logistics in general is what you find is there's a chain of venues that seem to follow the industry.
Mm.
And it's not high sushi. So
No.
it's those people that know where their market is, and when you work in logistics and the working suburbs of capitals around Australia, I think a subway is always a good choice, but you will find a pretty readily available stream of things that probably aren't great for you because that's their
Yep.
market.
Mm.
So look, it is. It's a challenge, but like I said, we've known each other for a long time. I think I can be a lot better in that space, and that
Yep.
you kind of hit a tipping point. It's weird what everyone's tipping point is.
Yep.
I look at some people and you've got to be comfortable with yourself and comfortable in your own skin, and that's really important. And you should do things for the right reason. And if it's you that you want to improve for, the right reasons you want to improve for, then you'll improve.
Yeah. And we're,
yeah.
And we're, mate, like, we're changing for two reasons. Pain, there's enough pain to change, or there's enough wisdom. So you chuck the shirt off, look in the mirror, and you decide today's the day. There's enough pain there to look at it and go, I'm making a change.
Yeah.
Or there's the wisdom to go, you know what? If I invest in myself, I'm going to be better for others. If I'm in good shape and physically and mentally, then I can give more to others. Now, there's no right or I don't think there's a right or wrong of what's the catalyst for change. And there's probably a bit of both good. To have a bit of pain driving you, but a bit of wisdom driving you. But looking for the pain and looking for the wisdom actually isn't a bad thing to actually bring it forward, because often the reason we don't change is there's not quite enough pain. There's low expectations on how you should look, what you should do. So there's not enough to move. There's also not enough wisdom to actually go, you know what? I could be better. Like, this isn't that hard. I want to take the step because there's more in me. There's more potential or possibility. I think there's an opportunity here. And so you either want to get up or get down, because that's where the change is, not to sit in that sort of mild discomfort of not enough to move, and it's easy to be where I am.
It's a great point you make, and I think as you get older, both those motivators play a key role.
Absolutely.
In decision making.
Yep.
I don't think I was aware of it as much as I am now until you mention it. But ultimately, whether it's eating or drinking habits, I think when you're young, there's no association really to pain. It's more association to pleasure around your activities, and lack of consequence as you get older. And I know now you make decisions based on, you're right, will I be at my best tomorrow if I do that? As a leader of people, will I be present enough if I make those decisions to present like a leader? And for our guys out there, there's requirements of them. If I make those decisions, will I be in a state that I can physically go to work and legally drive? You associate the pain, because the pain feels a lot worse as you get older, but also around your decision making. And I think another important piece around that is, as a leader, will I make decisions that demonstrate I'm a role model?
Yep.
And that's really important to me. I think, around habits and behaviours, will I be the type of person that promotes the things that I want to see in our business? It's quite interesting that you bring up those points. I think sometimes, whether it's a late night dinner or an extra glass of red or something, as you get older, your mind goes immediately to how you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
What needs to be done tomorrow?
Yeah. I
think when the kids were young, it was how noisy are they going to be and what time are they up?
Yeah.
But in your 20s, I don't think those things are really, I'll sleep it off.
No, the pain in your 20s is, I need a girlfriend, I need to look good.
Yep.
So I'm going to the gym. Like, that's the real reason is. But I think you're right, mate. And, that role model piece, I think that's when we can connect our wellness to something more meaningful. I think it has a bit more substance to stick with it. So, personally, I have it as one of my values. I've got 4 values. It's one of the values. But then the bringing it to life is, and this is just for me, it's like, I want my kids to see me fit. Like, when I'm 80 and they're talking to their kids, it's like, Granddad or Poppy Mac was fit. He'd run every day. He'd look after himself. So the idea of what they see in me matters. I want to fast forward that as to how they're going to show up as husbands and wives, as to what they see about physical well-being and food. And again, that's not for everyone, but all I'm trying to do in that respect is find when the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock, I'm going to get up, because when they wake up, I want them to know, see me come back from a run knowing that I've done some work. And so when we can connect it to something bigger than just the scales or just to look better or something extrinsic, that want to make better decisions becomes easier because it's got more substance to it. And that's, the studies show that with the heart attacks and strokes is, I want to be around, the bigger pain is I want to be around for my kids in 10
Mm.
years' time. But the idea of losing, once someone has a heart attack or something, to lose your kids again, that's enough to see a change.
Mm.
But all I'm trying to do is get that before I have to get to that position. So that would be something for people to look at potentially in that is, and the other bit before we finish, mate, is just small steps. Like if you're on the road and you normally order 4 dim sims, order 2. And then do that for 2 weeks, and that's a win. Don't get over think it's got to be perfect, and then that's one. And then we start to just go for a 10-minute walk instead of nothing. On your day off, it's these little things that start to then just move the dial towards health, as opposed to keeping it where it is, or it's moving downwards. And just checking little things off. That would be my biggest thing for any of the guys doing it. If you're wanting to make a shift, is think about food. What's 1 or 2 things you could move on to? Exercise. What's 1 or 2 small things that you think you could get done? Maintain it and build on it over the next bit of time. And remembering that we're looking for the long term. We're looking for 3 years, not 3 weeks. Because if you I don't know, 150 calories in a dim sim, you eat 4 every day, take 300 calories off every day for 365 days, that matters over a long period of time.
Absolutely. You know more about logistics than you let on, mate, because that's the stable go-to, the Dimmy.
Well, they certainly should be.
The world of logistics.
Yeah, they are cheap and tasty.
Cheap, yeah, absolutely. Or as I sometimes refer to them, mate, travellers.
Yep. So, but again, that would be for me from some guy that does a lot of wellness and with people. It's look at it from a long term, small shifts, small steps, and you're gonna have good days and bad days, but staying consistent and staying on course more than you're off it. That's where you're going to get the change from, and it's the bounce back when you have a big weekend or a big day. The bounce back to get back onto a decent platform again. How quickly you can do that is going to be the outcome of what you get. But if you just decline for another 3 months and then you try and bounce back again, you're digging a bigger hole. So you just want to bounce back quicker.
Understand, mate. I appreciate your time. I reckon there's some value, Lukey, in a bit of a parting note with your expertise in wellness in this industry. What's your take on energy drinks and giant cans of V? Because that is the nectar that fuels our industry.
Yeah, it's I remember when it first came out, and it's a bit like smoking. They didn't think much of it, and there's good studies now of showing what it does to young kids' brains that haven't fully developed, and there's probably not enough science on what it's actually doing to us. But it's, in my perspective, it's pretty evil. As close as you probably could get to a stimulant that's legal, that then people overuse and abuse as a need to a livelihood. And that's the thing I see with it, is people don't drink it occasionally because they like it. They're fully addicted to it and overusing it as a way to live. And anything that you've got that much dependency on to get you through the day, I just don't think's good. Like, it's going to do a lot more damage than and have a week off it and think and see what sort of side effects you have and what sort of headaches and things that happen trying to get off it for a week will show you actually what it's actually doing to you.
Thanks, mate. Sorry to throw that curveball into you.
No, it's kids here. I've got Cooper, 15, mate, and you're having these conversations with him. One of the ones I have with him is, mate, don't get whatever you go and eat an ice cream, have a block of chocolate, eat some chips with your mates, but don't go down the energy drink way, mate, because it's just going to bring you undone because it becomes addictive so quick. So that's something we've really tried to tell the kids about. There's a few things that we just don't want them to be near, and honestly, that's one of them.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And look, I personally appreciate your time here. When this goes out to our general audience, I'm sure they'd love to learn more about you and your business and services. So we'll make that available to the business to understand who I've spoken to today. And it's certainly a conversation as time allows. I'd love to roll through with you, mate, and do some more work in this space and take that to the troops around the grounds.
Yeah, mate, it was awesome. Like it's good fun. It's a good conversation. I think Men's Health Week. It's definitely needed in the practical sense. And whenever I coach anyone, I always say awareness is not action. Right? We've got awareness. That's great, but it's not action. But it is the essential doorway to action. We can't take action unless we've got awareness. But we can't mistake an awareness for action. So we can have all the knowledge and ideas around, but unless we do something with it, it means nothing. But we need it to start. So this is an awareness piece that we hope that can be a stepping stone to action. And that's all we're trying to do is we cultivate awareness to take action. But awareness for awareness sakes, I often think it's overused and becomes a waste of time. So we've got to act as well.